If you see his efforts as opposed to his failure, that encourages him to keep trying. He says, "What's wrong?" The easy thing to say is nothing. I don't know. The vulnerable thing to add to that, I don't know, but would you sit here with me? It would really help if I can talk this out a little bit. Hi, this is Bob Grant from Relationship Headquarters, and today we're going to talk about when you get upset, this happens inside of him. So when a woman gets upset, whether she's sad, angry, overwhelmed, the women I talk with, and I'm certainly not an expert on women, but the women I talk with say, while it feels overwhelming, they're more used to it, I think, than probably men are, is a woman can cry or be real emotional, and it'll be fine. She just would like it that, she's not alone and that her partner can at least try to comfort her or at least be a part of a team so she doesn't feel like she has to deal with whatever's going on by herself. When she's upset, what the first thing a man is most likely to do, his tendency is to shut down. And shutting down is a way of detaching from those emotions. And the reason men do this is because when in doubt, men and women both go into what I call familiar mode. Familiar mode is the way we react in a crisis or the way we react when we don't have the easy answer with what to do. So we fall back on what's familiar. And for men, what's familiar is to step back from whatever's bothering them, the problem, to be able to detach and try to be somewhat of an observer so that I can look at the problem to fix it, because they associate the pain or discomfort as being caused by some problem. Fix the problem, therefore the pain goes away. Whereas women have something similar to that. For women, the process of fixing the problem is just as important as the problem. The process of how it's affecting her, how she feels with it, how it's having an impact with her. It's much more global or it's much more all-encompassing. Whereas men, what's familiar for us is, you're having a problem because this problem over here, it's A and B or X and Y. So therefore, X is happening, and so therefore, Y is the solution, because if I fix the problem, it'll take away how I'm feeling bad. And this is what men know to do. And it can come across to women as insensitive, that he doesn't really care as much about how you feel. He doesn't really care because he wants to solve the problem. So there's the familiar part, but also why men fall into this familiar mode is because those feelings, since we don't feel them a lot, are really, really overwhelming. I mean, to the point of overwhelming, like, it's not quite a panic attack, but it feels overwhelming, like I'm sinking down to quicksand, I'm sinking down, I'm still sinking down, and it's not going away, it's only getting worse. So from my standpoint as a man, this feels like I'm sinking in quicksand. It never would occur to me just to let myself keep sinking, that somehow that feels good for you. And to me, that doesn't make sense to me why you would want me to do that, because if you're feeling what I'm feeling, we're both sinking into quicksand. Why would I want to sit here and just watch you sink in quicksand when I'm trying to get you out of this? And then you get upset because I won't jump in the quicksand with you and just kind of have a slow drift down to the bottom of the swamp. That's what it feels like. And so when we try to fix the problem, what may come across as selfish, we're trying to rescue. We're trying to do what's familiar. You're in pain. Because you're in pain, if I care about you, I'm in pain. And the way I deal with pain is take away the thing that's causing pain. It's for your sake, but it's also for mine, because this is awful to sit here while you're in pain and I can't do anything about it. And you tell me there's nothing can be done, because when you say there's nothing can be done or there's nothing you want me to do, you don't want me to fix it. This is what men tend to hear. Don't use your superpower to take my problem away. Don't do it. I want you to take your superpower, which is solving problems. I want you to take your superpower, your strength. I want you to take that big S off your chest, take it off, put it aside. I just want you to sit here with me. Listen, while I share how much pain I'm in, I want you to join me in my pain. And for most men, the idea is, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to walk around the house blindfolded, bumping into stuff, when I can just take the blindfold off and walk around just fine? Now, I'm simplifying this. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. Again, any man watching this, feel free to correct me if you'd say it differently. But that for us doesn't feel natural to us. It doesn't make sense. We've heard, women like this to be sure and do this. And men, okay, we kind of get it, but it still isn't going to feel natural to us. So if you're a woman watching this okay, how do we get him not to just do what's familiar? How do we get him not to just be a guy? Because in all honesty, if he was just acting like a woman, that's going to drive you crazy too. I've talked to enough women that they want a man to be sensitive at times, but most don't want a really sensitive man. The idea of a guy that's super sensitive all the time, I mean, there's exceptions, some women do, but they really don't want that. But they want him to be able to be sensitive or attentive at times. So how do we train him to be more attentive? And I'm saying train him because as I'm talking now, there isn't one, but right now I'm just imagining a group of men on the other side of the camera. They're not here, but in my mind, they're here. So when I'm saying this stuff, I'm saying it in a way that all these guys aren't just going to run and jump me and just pound me for telling women this stuff that's going to drive them crazy. So as close as I can, this is man vetted and listening to them. So if I say the word train, men don't mind being trained. We just hope you do it the right way. And, train doesn't mean train like I'm a dog. Trained is in what's your preference, what works for you, what do you like? And if I know what the cheat sheet is, okay, fine. If that's what training is, give me a cheat sheet. As a man, sign me up. I'm all for that. So one of the things with men is that we don't like to mess up, make mistakes. We don't like to fail. Men in general, pretty competitive. That's a testosterone thing. Some more so than others, but you can't have it both ways, ladies. If you love the testosterone, some of the competitive stuff comes with it. And so if we're going to do things differently, the first thing he needs, the main thing he needs is permission to experiment. Because permission to experiment means he's going to mess up at times. The times he experiments are not just going to be when you're upset. It's going to be other times too. In other words, the things that you've done in your relationship prior to you getting upset is going to have the biggest impact on how he responds to you. So if he experiments with flowers, if he grabs you in public, if he's real affectionate or not very affectionate, as he tries different things, well, how do you respond to him when he does stuff you don't like? How do you respond to him when he does stuff you like? In other words, what kind of feedback are you giving him besides I told him? I told him may make you feel good like a checkbox. I told him is not the way for him to remember. I told him is just doing a logical thing. I told him I don't like that, as though he's going to remember that. Men are going to remember stuff that they feel. They're going to remember stuff based on the reaction they got from you, good or bad. And men tend to go into a binary state of this works, this doesn't work with her. This does work, this doesn't work. And then once we get enough data each way, then we start to establish a pattern. Oh, this is the stuff she likes. And then once we have that pattern, then we understand, so I can based off that. So she likes flowers. She likes it when I buy candy or something. Oh, and then men, well, I'm just making this up. And the men are like, oh, she likes gifts. Okay. It isn't even so much the flowers, the candy, or she likes, and then men start to experiment from that. Again, not because you told him, but because whenever he does those things, you give an emotional response. You're happy, but you don't keep it all inside. Oh, okay. So that's in that area. If you're upset, before you're terribly upset, he does something you don't like, something may come across as rude, something across as indifferent, and you say to him, yeah, that upsets me when you do that. That hurts my feelings. That makes me feel like you don't care. And again, when you bring stuff up, you want to do it in the form of a question as opposed to an accusation, because you really don't know his intent. You may think you do, but you most likely would be wrong. Not all the time. Sometimes you're right. What I find is oftentimes, and this is both men and women, your observation is correct. What you did see something. The interpretation is fairly subjective based on our own mood. So he says something and doesn't pay attention to you, and in the course of not paying attention to you, he says something quickly or abruptly, and you interpret that as he doesn't care. That may not be it at all. It may simply be that he's got so much going on at work and that he's got 3 projects going on, or his brother is sick and he hasn't told you to the degree his brother is sick, and he's really distracted and overwhelmed. Has nothing to do with does he love you, but he may not say that to you. So then if we ask him, when you're abrupt like that, when you cut me off, when you interrupt me, I don't like that. See, that's his opportunity to share. Now, he may not, but the very least what that does is it gives him feedback. It lets him know what he's doing, how it's coming across. And this requires some vulnerability on your part as a woman. Don't assume because you told him this once or twice, it's going to stick. If there's a rule of thumb, it's every time you're upset about something, you bring it up, and here's the second rule of thumb, this is 1B, is, oh my gosh, Bob, do I have to bring stuff all the time? I say, you don't have to bring stuff up all the time, but you bring stuff up if it's bothering you and you're willing to go all the way with it. So if you bring something up and it's not important enough to follow up with it, as in bring it up again some other time, then don't bring it up. Some things are not going to be worth it. Some things are not going to be, if he, like I don't like being interrupted. And let's say someone interrupted me and they did it, maybe, we're just talking, but maybe they kept doing it. And at some point, if it's my partner, I'm saying, you interrupted me 3 or 4 times. I don't know if you don't like what I'm saying. I don't know if you're upset. So I'm asking, how come you keep interrupting? Now, see, I'm pointing out what they're doing, but I'm not telling them that they're being so rude. They're, what an awful job of listening to them. See, I'm not putting a value judgment with it because that just makes people defensive. And then they get to hear how they're coming across. No, that's the way I always talk. Well, for me, if I'm sharing something, what I like to be heard too. And see, at least now we're starting something. But see, that's something that's important enough to me. If someone kept doing it, that's something I can never accept, someone that constantly interrupts me. That's something I'll maybe not every time, but I'll continue to bring up because if I don't, I'll get resentful. There are very few things that mean that much that I'm willing to constantly bring it up. And that's one of the ways you tell. What do I bring up? You bring up repeatedly what you're willing to enforce. So when you do these things prior to you getting really upset, this is what he takes in there. And then remember, when you're really upset or you're overwhelmed, why he does what he does, how it affects him, we know he's going to get overwhelmed too. And what I'm asking you is that mindset of his permission to experiment. If he's trying, if you think he's trying, even if it's not a great job, even if he's fumbling around, even if it's just what's wrong, if you don't make it a conscious effort to remind yourself he's trying and you punish because he doesn't get it right, I'm not saying you have to be his coach. I'm not saying you have to take his hand, but seeing that this is where it requires, this is how you help him learn your signature. But I've told him before, I don't care if you've told him before. I mean, I care, but I don't think that's going to make much of a difference. Remember, our goal here is to help him connect with you, not to be right. If it's simply about just being right, you might win, but you're going to lose. Is that what you want? You can be right, but at the same time, he's not going to connect with you. If you see his efforts as opposed to his failure, that encourages him to keep trying. He says, what's wrong? The easy thing to say is nothing. I don't know. The vulnerable thing to add to that, I don't know, but would you sit here with me? It would really help if I can talk this out a little bit. That kind of invitation, most men, see, it's very specific. Doesn't mean that I have to have the answer to your problem. Doesn't mean you want the answer. Oh, you just need to talk it out. Okay, what you need is support. Yes. And if he starts jumping in, problem solving over here, sweetie, I appreciate it. I'm just feeling a bit overwhelmed. If you can just kind of wait with me, it would mean the world to me. Hear the vulnerability. Don't say that last part. That's between you and me. But hear how vulnerable that is. Hear how authentic that is. And see, in guiding him with this, what we're doing is we're modeling for him that this means a lot to you. This is foreign for him. For him, it's overwhelming. He doesn't necessarily need it like you do. He wants to solve the problem. The problem is you feeling isolated or whatever you're feeling, not just the problem that's caused this. We want him that when you feel overwhelmed, what he's been doing is associating that with, got to fix this problem, got to make this go away. We want to change that to, when you feel overwhelmed, it's an opportunity to connect. Because isn't that what you want? We want to make it that moments of intensity, even conflict, becomes opportunities to connect. And this is one of the main ways you do that. So have fun experimenting with this. Try some of this out. Leave a comment below. Tell me if you've tried it, leave a comment below. We'll check this from time to time and tell me why you won't think it will work. Because notice what we're trying to do is get away from just logical and doing what's familiar. And we're trying to bridge your way of thinking versus his way of thinking and to get away from who's right or who's wrong as opposed to we're complements. We go together. We kind of bring out the best in both. So if you like this, be sure and hit the like button. Join us down below, leave a comment, and visit us on Relationship Headquarters, where we look forward to seeing you next time.